is the book club back again for another session. Farooq is not with us today, I gather. Tushar is managing the show. And welcome, everyone. We have Prabhanjan Mane, who teaches at the Shivaji University Department of English. So I'm sure whatever he tells you today about the play under review will be very well researched. So Prabhanjan has a special affiliation with modern drama, modern literature, modernism, I think, basically, or postmodern. That's right. He told me postmodern literature is his forte. So this play belongs to that category. And Prabhanjan, we're eager to know all about it. So please do start.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Yeah. The play which...
Okay, so now Prabhanjan is about to start. So I suggest the rest of us can switch off our audios and maybe our videos too.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much, ma'am, for giving me the opportunity to talk about Suzan-Lori Parks' famous play, Topdog Underdog. For the sake of our convenience, I have divided my presentation in a few sections. At the beginning, I would like to briefly talk about, in my introduction, I'll talk about the play and a few details regarding the play. In the second section, I'll deal with Suzan-Lori Parks, a few biographical details. Next, I'll deal with historical context in which this play was produced. And later on, I'll briefly talk about plot of this play, Topdog Underdog. And if time permits, we'll take into consideration critical views about of some scholars and reviewers. Obviously, I'll be dealing with prominent themes and style of this play. Let's begin. Topdog Underdog tells the story of two brothers, Lincoln and Booth, who, abandoned by first one parent and then the other, have had to depend upon each other for survival since they were teenagers. Now in their 30s, the brothers struggle to make a new life, one that will lead them out of their poverty. Lincoln, a master of the con game 3-card Monte, has abandoned a life of crime for a more respectable job, impersonating Abraham Lincoln at an arcade. Booth, on the other hand, earns his living as a petty thief, one who wishes to emulate his elder brother's success by learning how to throw the cards. Throughout this play, the brothers compete against each other, vying for control. At any given moment, one may yield power over the other, only to relinquish it in the next. Hence, Topdog Underdog reveals a topsy-turvy world in which Lincoln and Booth live, a chaotic world that is as dangerous as it is illusory. Like the title suggests, Topdog Underdog, which was published in 2001, is a play about competition, reversals, and mirror images that reflect the true self. The idea that became a Topdog Underdog can be found in one of Suzan-Lori Parks' earlier plays, The American Play, which was produced and published in 1995, which features a gravedigger named the Foundling Father, whose obsession with Abraham Lincoln leads him to find work in a sideshow. Like Link in Topdog Underdog, the Foundling Father applies whiteface, models several different types of fake beards, and sits in a chair awaiting visitors who pay to assassinate Abraham Lincoln with a cap gun. Though the Foundling Father and Link hold the same job, any similarities between these two protagonists end there. Regardless, Parks's fascination with history, especially personal history, and the ways in which illusion can reveal identity makes for riveting drama. Now I'll briefly talk about Suzan-Lori Parks. Uh, Suzan-Lori Parks is the first African-American woman playwright who received the prestigious Pulitzer Award for Topdog Underdog in 2002. Suzan-Lori Parks, the daughter of an army colonel, was born in Fort Knox, Kentucky in 1963. As a member of a military family, Parks moved often, first to West Texas and then to Germany, where she settled during her teenage years. While attending German schools, Parks began to write short stories. When she returned to the US, Parks attended Mount Holyoke College, where she studied creative writing with the novelist James Baldwin. Baldwin was the first to encourage her development as a playwright. For at the time, Parks had the habit of acting out the characters' parts when she read her short stories in class. Her first play, The Sinner's Place, was produced in 1984 in Amherst, Massachusetts. While at Mount Holyoke, Parks was a member of the Phi Beta Kappa Honor Society and graduated cum laude with a Bachelor of Arts degree in 1985. She also studied at the Yale University School of Drama. After college, Parks traveled to London to write plays and study acting. Her second play, Betting on the Dust Commander, was produced in 1987, followed by Imperceptible Mutabilities in the Third Kingdom, which won the one important award, prestigious award in 1989, Obie Award for Best Off-Broadway Play of that year. Parks's fifth play, The Death of the Last Black Man in the Whole Entire World, produced and published in 1990, continued to explore the issue of racism and sexism that have been hallmarks of her work from her earliest days as a playwright. These plays, like the others that followed, defy the conventions of the modern theater as they address social issues like slavery, gender roles, and poverty. Parks won her second Obie for Venus, which was produced in 1996, a dramatic account of how in 1810, a Khoisan woman was brought from South Africa to England to serve as a sideshow attraction. Parks's greatest critical acclaim to date arrived with the production of Topdog Underdog, a play that she began writing in 1999 and that was produced off-Broadway at the Joseph Papp Public Theatre in 2001 under the direction of George Wolfe. The play, the first of Parks's to appear on Broadway, debuted in April 2002 at the Ambassador Theatre and shortly thereafter won the 2002 Pulitzer Prize for Drama, thereby making Parks the first African-American woman to receive that award. Now, I'll briefly talk about the historical context. Obviously, the first aspect is the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln. As the American Civil War was drawing to a close, President Abraham Lincoln and his wife Mary Todd Lincoln attended a performance of Our American Cousin, a musical comedy at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. While Lincoln sat in his box seat in the balcony, John Wilkes Booth, an actor and rebel sympathizer for Maryland, sneaked into the president's box and fired one shot at point blank range from his derringer, shouting, "Thus always to tyrants." Some reports have Booth adding, "The South is avenged." Booth leaped to the stage below, limping to an exit and escaping on his horse. Lincoln lay mortally wounded and was carried up across the street, where he entered a coma until he died the next morning on April 15, 1865. Booth received medical attention while on the run, but was fatally shot when he was discovered hiding in a Virginia barn. The next aspect is blackface. Blackface minstrelly was among the most popular forms of live entertainment in America during the years preceding the Civil War. Minstrel shows featured white entertainers who wore blackface to imitate the mannerisms and speech of Southern slaves or slaves who had been freed in the North. Many minstrel routines included singing and dancing that bordered on caricature. The entertainer Al Jolson brought this tradition to the silver screen in the film entitled The Jazz Singer, which was the first motion picture to feature sound. The Topdog Underdog, in this play, Parks stands the blackface tradition on its head by having Lincoln, a black man, apply whiteface to imitate the very man who was responsible for freeing blacks from slavery. Yes. Now, let's briefly talk about the plot or the story of this play. This play is not at all divided in acts, but there are 5 to 6 scenes in this play. We'll take the first scene of this play. The play opens on a Thursday evening in a boarding house room with Booth. By the way, there are 2 important characters, Lincoln and Booth. As I have just mentioned, they are brothers. Here, at the beginning of this play, we find that Booth is practicing his 3-card Monte routine over a board supported by 2 milk crates. He practices his patter, imagining that he has won a large sum of money. Lincoln, wearing a frock coat, top hat, and fake beard, sneaks up behind his brother, who whirls and pulls a gun. Booth tells Lincoln to take off his disguise because he fears Lincoln's getup will scare Grace, with whom Booth has a date the next day. Booth claims that Grace is in love with him and that no man can love her the way he can. Booth then shows Lincoln a diamond a ring he plans to give Grace. The ring is obviously stolen, but it is smaller than the one he gave her when they were together 2 years before. Therefore, Booth, by giving his beloved a smaller ring, decreases the chance that she will give the ring back because she cannot remove it once it has been placed upon her finger. Booth insists that Lincoln remove his costume. He does not understand why his brother does not leave the costume at work. But Lincoln says that he is afraid someone might steal it. Lincoln then relates a story about how a little rich kid asked him for an autograph while riding the bus home for work. Link decides to charge the kid $10 for the favor, but the kid only has a $20 bill. Lincoln, in the guise of honest Abe, promises to bring the kid his change the next time they meet on the same bus. But Lincoln buys a round of drinks at Lucky's instead. Lincoln questions Booth about his card setup. Booth, wanting to create a new persona for himself, informs Lincoln that he is thinking about changing his name. Lincoln suggests an African name like Shango, which would be an easy name for everyone to say and would not, in Lincoln's opinion, obstruct employment possibilities. Lincoln has brought Chinese food for dinner, and the brothers begin converting the card setup into a dinner table, which prompts a discussion about their present living arrangement. Lincoln points out the room's shortcomings, such as the absence of a toilet or a sink, but Booth does not see anything wrong with the amenities. Lincoln goes on to get the food and finds a playing card on the floor. He places the card on the table and asks Booth if he has been playing cards. Booth says he has been playing solitaire rather than admit that he has been practicing his three-card Monte routine unsuccessfully. The brothers argue over who will eat what. Lincoln relents and gives Booth the screams. Curious, Lincoln brings up the subject of solitaire again, and Booth suggests that they play a hand of poker or rummy when they have finished eating. Lincoln reminds Booth that he will not touch the cards, but Booth insists that it would be just for fun. Lincoln remains adamant, but Booth presses the issue, wanting to know whether Lincoln would break his vow if they played for money. Lincoln says that Booth has no money because he, Lincoln, is the one who brings home the paycheck. Booth claims to have an inheritance, but Lincoln says that Booth might as well have nothing because he never plans to spend money he has. Booth responds by saying that Lincoln blew his inheritance. The conversation abates and returns to the subject of food. The brothers compare their fortunate cookie messages. Booth finishes eating and begins practicing his three-card Monte routine again. His movements remain awkward and clumsy, and Lincoln tries his best to ignore him. Lincoln, however, cannot refrain from making comments about Booth's pattern. Finally, Lincoln tells Booth that if he wants to throw the cards properly, he must practice the routine in smaller sections. Booth suggests that they work as a team, but Lincoln changes the subject by saying he will clean up after the meal. Booth then announces that from then on, he wants to be called three-card. Booth says that everyone calls him that. According to him, Grace especially likes that name. But Lincoln thinks that both the name and his brother are too much. And he says, I quote, "I'm making a point." Uh, Booth adds that point made, three-card, point made. Booth again raises the idea of the brothers working as a team. He has visions of making easy money, but Lincoln reminds him that there is more to making money at three-card Monte than finding a mark. Booth goads Lincoln into accepting his proposition by reminding him that their success would attract women. Lincoln questions Booth's relationship with Grace, which does not seem all that secure. Booth appeals to Lincoln's sense of vanity by reminding him that uh, at one time he was the best three-card dealer in the city. Lincoln, however, states that he does not touch the cards anymore. Booth tries another tack by calling his brother names and by reminding him of how he, Booth, discovered their mother packing her things to leave. Booth tells Lincoln that their mother asked him to look out for his older brother, which brings the conversation around again to how, in Booth's views, he is trying to create an economic opportunity while Lincoln sits around and does nothing. Booth concludes his uh, harangue by shouting, I quote, "You standing in my way, Link," unquote. Lincoln apologizes, saying that he would prefer to do honest work. Booth chides Lincoln about his costume and how he must impersonate some white man. But Lincoln says that visitors to the arcade are not misled. And he adds, I quote, "When people know the real deal, it ain't a hustle," unquote. Booth twists Lincoln's words and says that the card game would be the real deal. Booth also implies that Lincoln's working at the arcade transcends his role of the great emancipator to embody slavery. Essentially, Booth says that his brother has enslaved himself to the owners of the arcade who controls his destiny. Lincoln uh, warns Booth not to push him. His anger is rising. Booth informs Lincoln that he will have to leave because their living arrangement was intended to be temporary. Lincoln agrees to leave without complaint and then plays a blues tune on the guitar. The song is sad and mournful. Its theme, one of abandonment and displacement. Booth likes the song which Lincoln composed while at work. Lincoln tells Booth about how they got their names. Their father was drunk when he told Lincoln that he named his sons Booth and Lincoln because it was his idea of a joke. So in the first scene of this play, we come to know about the relationship between Booth and Lincoln and the complex relationship between the brothers and their past as well. The next scene, scene 2, Scene 2 opens with Booth dressed like he is about to go on an uh, expedition and checking to see if Lincoln is home. As he undresses, he reveals layers of clothing that he has stolen. He lays one suit on Lincoln's easy chair and another on his own bed. He sets two glasses and a bottle of whiskey on top of the stacked milk crates. Booth sits in a chair pretending to read a magazine when Lincoln walks in. Lincoln enters the room to the sound of improvised fanfare. Booth knows that today, Friday, is payday, and the brothers, referring to each other as Ma and Pa, begin to celebrate their prosperity. Lincoln pours two glasses of whiskey, and Booth begins counting the money Lincoln has brought home. Lincoln tells him to budget the money because he wants to know how much is available for the week. Booth, uh, indignant that Lincoln has failed to notice the suit he stole for him, says that Lincoln would not notice his ex-wife, Cookie, if she was in bed. The jibe makes Lincoln wistful, but then his mood brightens when he sees the blue suit lying on the chair. Booth brags about how he boosted the suits and the other items of clothing from a department store. He says, I quote, I stole and I stole generously, unquote. He tells his brother and he adds, just because I am not good as you at cards, don't mean I can't do nothing. Lincoln compliments Booth on his howl and then delivers a speech about how clothes do not make the man. He says, I quote, all day long I wear that get-up, but that don't make me who I am, unquote. He is reminded of how their father's clothes would hang on the closet, whereupon Booth, resentful about how their father spent more time and money on his mistress than on his children, tells Lincoln that he took their father's clothes outside and burned them. Lincoln, on the other hand, is preoccupied with his job security and how he would leave the job when the time came. He concludes by sounding a refrain from his true identity, quote, fake beard, top hat, don't make me into no Lincoln. I was Lincoln on my own before any of that, unquote. After the brothers finish dressing and modeling their clothes for each other, Booth tells Lincoln that he looks like uh, he did when he was with Cookie. Booth also thinks about how his new suit will impress Grace. Lincoln thinks that they should switch ties, and so they do. Booth uh, Lincoln asks Booth to do the budget. He calculates how much money they will need to pay the utilities, some of which, like the phone, they do not actually use. Booth wants to pay their bill uh, so service will be restored and they can call their lady friends. Booth has it all worked out that having a phone will transform him into a ladies' man. But Lincoln, dressed and dejected, does not believe that a woman would ever call him. Booth scolds Lincoln for not having any knowledge or confidence when it comes to women. Booth resumes calculating the budget, allowing money for alcohol and meals, etc. Lincoln tells Booth that there is talk about cutbacks at the arcade. Since Lincoln has been working there for only 8 months, he would most likely be one of the first employees to be let go. Uh, don't sweat it, man. We will find something else. This is how Booth replies, acknowledging their fates are bound together. Lincoln says that he likes his job because he can sit there all day and let his mind travel. It is what he calls very easy work. Sometimes Lincoln thinks about women, but most of the time he lets his mind go quiet as he composes songs, makes plans, and sits there trying to forget about the past. He invites Booth to come down again, but Booth says that once was enough. He asks if the best customer came in today, as he does not, as he does most days. And Lincoln says, I quote, "He shot honest Abe, yes, honest Abe," unquote. They discuss about the things the best customer whispers into honest Abe's ears. And Booth concludes that the best customer is one deep black brother. Booth also concludes that Lincoln's job is bizarre, but Lincoln replies that he says that it is a living, but Booth challenges him by saying that he is not really living at all. I am alive, aren't I? Lincoln retorts. He then tells about how Lonnie's death made him give up the cards for a secure, less dangerous job. Lincoln likes his work at the arcade, but he cannot let go of his fear that he might lose his job and be forced to seek employment again. Booth, in an effort to cheer his brother up and perhaps win him over to the idea that they should work together as a team, reminds Lincoln that he was once lucky with the cards. But Lincoln dismisses the notion that anything but skill is involved in throwing the cards. When Lincoln once again expresses his fear about losing his job, Booth tells him that he has to jazz up his act if he wants to attract more customers and keep his job. He gives his brother some pointers on how to make his performance more dramatic. However, when Lincoln asks Booth to help him practice, Booth tells him he does not have time because he must get ready for his date with Grace. Claiming that it is the biggest night of his life, Booth asks Lincoln for a small loan. Lincoln gives Booth a $5 bill. Booth, perhaps feeling guilty about abandoning his brother, suggests that they rehearse when he gets back from his date. Lincoln agrees and Booth leaves. Now Lincoln is alone. He undresses and hangs his clothes neatly over a chair, leaving his feet bare. He dons his work uniform, securing the top hat beneath his chin with an elastic band. His outfit is complete except for the white makeup. Lincoln pretends to get shot.
Yes. Prabhanjan is back, I think.
Okay, Prabhanjan, start now.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Some problem with my laptop, so I'm using my mobile phone now.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, please continue.
Yeah.
Uma, hi.
Hi. Yeah, I'm sitting here.
Yeah. So,
Hi there.
Hello.
shall we start then?
Yes, please.
Yeah. I have tried to discuss the first two scenes of Topdog Underdog. Now, shall I shift to the last scene, concluding scene of this play?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is it
Go
okay?
on. Oh, no, whatever you have planned, please go on with that.
Yeah. The last scene of this play, scene 6, which opens on Thursday night. The room appears empty, as though no one is home. Lincoln enters drunk. He leaves the door slightly open. As he does in an earlier scene, he imitates the sound of fanfare as he enters the room. He calls Booth's name and pulls out a large wad of cash once he has sure no one is home. He secures the money with an elastic band and puts it into his pocket. He sits down in his chair and takes the money out again, counting it quickly like he did when he was on the street. Lincoln begins a monologue in which he celebrates finding himself again. He had just returned from Lucky's place where everyone saw the old Link again. Not only does Lincoln still possess his skill with cards, but the women have started coming around again now that he shows flashes of the old success. He asks, "Who is this man?" "Link, that's right," he answers. Lincoln is full of drink and bravado, making fun of the tourists. He has swindled out of money. Just then, Booth comes out from behind the dressing screen that separates the room. He stands at the door without making a sound. Meanwhile, Lincoln continues talking about his conquest and how he has been anymore. Booth closes the door, which prompts another spell. Lincoln asks Booth if he has had another evening to remember, and Booth says he has, though perhaps he would not have used those words to describe it. Lincoln begins to tell Booth about his own memorable evening when Booth announces that he has some news to tell. Lincoln tells him to go first. After some hesitation, Booth says that Grace got down on her knees and asked him to marry her. Lincoln cannot believe it, and neither can Booth. "Amazing Grace," he says. Booth then offers an explanation for why Grace did not show up the other night. He says he made a mistake by getting the days switched. She was not out with another man. She was at home watching television. Booth continues his story, saying that Grace wants to get married immediately. She wants to have a baby. She wants to have his baby. Seeing the downcast look on Lincoln's face, Booth tells him not to worry. They will name their baby boy after him. A short spell ensues, and Booth asks Lincoln what news he has to tell. At first, Lincoln does not want to tell anything, so Booth asks him if the news about Grace is good news. Then Booth shifts the topic to the bad news, that is, Grace plans on their living together as man and wife. So Lincoln will have to move. no sweat, says Lincoln. Booth is apologetic, but uh, he says that it was a temporary situation anyhow. Lincoln finds a suitcase and begins packing his belongings. Booth cannot believe that Lincoln would take the bad news so easily, especially after he just lost his job and does not have any friends who will put him up. Furthermore, Booth cannot believe that Lincoln would be willing to leave him that quickly. Lincoln thanks Booth for his generosity. He tells Booth that he will not have a hard time finding another place to live because he already has another job working as a security guard. Lincoln continues packing his things and picks up the whiskey bottle. Booth tells him to take the uh, medicine with him. He will not need it because he has Grace's love to keep him warm. Lincoln asks if Booth plans to find a job or let Grace support him. But Booth assures him that he has wonderful plans, though he does not reveal what they are. Lincoln warns Booth that he will lose Grace if he is not able to support himself. She will not like working hard, only to find that he was just lying around doing nothing. Booth responds by saying that Grace accepts him for who he is. Lincoln backs off, saying that he was just offering some advice, though it appears that Booth is doing fine on his own. A long spell ensues, and Booth says he never understood why their father never took any of his things with him when he left. Lincoln says it was because their father was drunk. Booth cannot understand why their father would leave his clothes, and Lincoln points out that he did worse than that. He left his two sons behind. He tells Booth to stop worrying about the past. He says, I quote, I mean, you ain't gonna figure it out by thinking about it. Just call it one of the great unsolved mysteries of existence, unquote. Booth announces that their mother had a man on the side. Lincoln counters by telling Booth that their father had many mistresses, one of whom let Lincoln into her bed once his father was finished uh, having a physical relationship. The short spell ensues, and Lincoln takes his get-up out of the closet. He is not sure if he should take it with him. Booth tells Lincoln that he will miss seeing him uh, coming home in costume. He wishes he had a picture of Honest Abe for the album. Lincoln agrees to put on the costume if Booth gets the camera. Why not? They have nothing to lose. Booth searches the apartment and finds the camera while Lincoln applies makeup that more closely resembles war paint than it does white face. Lincoln tells Booth that he did not he did not get fired because he was not any good. He was fired because the owners had to cut back on expenditures. Lincoln reiterates that getting fired had nothing to do with his performance. Booth agrees and tells him to smile for the camera, but Lincoln points out that Honest Abe never smiled. Booth says that Lincoln should smile because he has got a new job and having a good day. Lincoln protests, but Booth takes his picture anyway. Lincoln suggests that they take a picture of them together, but Booth declines, saying that he would prefer to save the film for the wedding. Lincoln says that the job at the arcade was not so bad after all. He just outgrew it. He tells Booth that he would be glad to put a word in for him when business picks up again. But Booth says that he cannot pretend to be someone else all day. Lincoln says uh, that he was not pretending because he was composing songs and thinking about women, including his ex-wife. Booth then recalls an episode where Cookie went looking for Lincoln but could not find him because he was not drinking at Lucky's. When she came to Booth's apartment and did not find Lincoln there, she seduced Booth because he says Lincoln was impotent and could not satisfy such a passionate woman. Booth was so taken with Cookie that he promised to marry her if she would leave Lincoln, but he changed his mind. Lincoln says that he does not think about his ex-wife anymore. Booth observes that Lincoln does not go back because he cannot. No matter what you do, you can get back to being who you was. Unquote. Best you can do is just pretend to be a year-old self, Booth says. Lincoln thinks that that is absolutely nonsense, and soon the brothers argue over Booth's plans to earn a living by throwing the cards. Lincoln does not believe Booth can make it. Booth responds by saying that Lincoln is scared. Lincoln tells him to get out of the way. He is leaving. Booth uh, blocks the way. He says Lincoln's uh, Lincoln is scared of him because he picked the deuce of spades twice correctly. Lincoln accepts Booth's challenge by ordering him to set up the cards. Booth sets up the board and the milk crates. Lincoln throws the cards. After a display of his skills, Lincoln asks Booth to pick the deuce of spades. Booth points to a card, which is the deuce of spade. Who the man? asks Booth. Meanwhile, Lincoln looks at the other two cards as though he is unsure what went wrong. Booth continues taunting Lincoln until he concedes that Booth has beaten him. You the man, Lincoln concedes. Booth wants more. How and he becomes angry when he realizes that Lincoln has been throwing out on the street earlier that day. Lincoln tells Booth that he was going to tell him, but he did not say anything because he still has not regained his old form. Booth knows that Lincoln has been putting him on. So he insists that this time Lincoln throw the cards for real. Booth starts to get down on himself, but Lincoln reminds him that the essential elements of the street and the crowd are missing. Booth says that cash would make it real. So he suggests that Lincoln put down some of the money he won earlier that day. A short spell ensues, and Booth taunts Lincoln, asking him if he is afraid of losing a chum. Lincoln puts his wad of money, almost $500, down on the table as he bet. Booth looks it over and gives his brother permission to begin the next round. Booth stops Lincoln before he can get going because Booth, does not believe that Lincoln is going full out. Lincoln says that he was just warming up. Besides, he put his money down and that makes it real. Booth says that in order for things to be real, he has to match the bet. Lincoln does not think Booth has any money because he hasn't held a job in years. Lincoln wonders if maybe Booth has been putting aside some money from the budget for himself, but Booth proudly declares that he has money of his own. The two brothers size each other up before Booth disappears. He returns with a nylon stocking containing money. Booth informs Lincoln how he discovered their mother's Thursday man. He tells about the time he overheard their mother asking her man for some money because there had been some kind of problem, some kind of mistake had been made, some kind of mistake that needed cleaning up. Booth alludes to his mother having an abortion. Her man refused to give her any money, so she had to face the problem by herself. Booth does not know if she kept the baby or got rid of it, but he remains certain that she knew he was going to walk in on her because before she had $500 to give him in nylon stocking. Booth places the nylon stocking on the table to match Lincoln's bed. Now it's real, Booth says, but Lincoln does not want his brother to bet his money. Booth orders Lincoln to throw the cards, but he says he does not want to play. Booth yells at him to throw the cards, and Lincoln begins his patter. Again, Lincoln asks Booth to pick the deuce of spades. Lincoln reminds him that this time it is for real, so he had better choose the right card. Lincoln asks if Booth thinks they are really brothers. Booth says he does. Then Lincoln again asks Booth to find the deuce. Booth quickly points out a card. Before he turns the card over, Lincoln asks Booth if he is sure that is the one. The brothers stare at each other, and then Lincoln turns over the card Booth picked. Booth breaks away to see that he had chosen the wrong card. It is the deuce of hearts. Lincoln collects the money and wishes Booth better luck next time. He begins to ridicule Booth, saying he has two left hands. Lincoln backs off, however, saying that cards are not everything. After all, Booth has grace. Booth does not respond, but Lincoln asks him if something is wrong. Booth says nothing is wrong, so Lincoln begins to boast a bit. Dejected, Booth admits that his brother still has the move. Lincoln chuckles, though he is quick to tell Booth that he is not laughing at him. The game is too complicated, he says. Perhaps surprised at how quickly he has regained his old form, Lincoln then sits down in the easy chair and starts untying the knot at the top of the nylon stocking. Lincoln comments that their mother tied the knot tightly, which prompts Booth to admit that he has never opened the stocking. Lincoln cannot believe that his brother was never tempted to spend the $5,000 the stocking contains. Booth says he has been saving the money. He asks Lincoln not to open the stocking, but Lincoln wants to see what is inside. Booth angrily tells him that they don't need to open it because they already know what is inside. Lincoln calls Booth a chump because there could be more than $500 in there, or there could be nothing. Booth begs Lincoln not to open it. Then, after some time, the play ends when we find uh, that Booth grabs Lincoln from behind as he lowers the knife to cut the stocking. Like the assassins in the arcade, Booth pulls out his gun and places it uh, against the left side of Lincoln's neck. Don't, Lincoln tells him. But Booth pulls the trigger and Lincoln slumps out of his chair onto the floor. Booth paces the floor, the gun smoking in his hand. Booth begins a final monologue in which he rails against his brother for taking his inheritance. Lincoln had his own inheritance and he blew it. Booth says that Lincoln will not be needing the money anymore, so he might as well take it. The money was his inheritance, one which he had been saving ever since he received it. Lincoln should not have taken it because it was still his. Their mother had given it to Booth and not Lincoln. Booth practices his patter again, thinking about how he will match his brother's fame as a dealer. He bends down to pick up the money and crumples to the floor. Booth sits beside Lincoln's dead body, holding him close. He sobs and lets out a wail to end the play. Now, I'll briefly talk about a few important themes of this play.
But I think, Prabhanjan,
Yes.
let people ask you the questions, etc., what they thought about it, and then you can come back again into it. My question is, when I hear your story, why is it that the names Booth and Lincoln are there? What does it mean?
Pardon?
Why the names Lincoln and Booth? Satish, when you did not have connectivity, Prabhanjan had explained that in the play, it is said that it was their father's joke. All right?
What does it imply?
Yes, yes. It is in the very beginning.
Can't
Am I
hear you.
audible? Am I audible?
No, not very clearly.
Am I audible?
Sound is breaking up.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, now you are. Go on.
Yeah. As I have mentioned, in the very first play, it is mentioned during their conversation.
1 minute. Everyone else, please shut off their audio. Everyone else, ensure your audios are shut off. Go ahead.
Yeah. In the very first scene of this play, during their conversation, in the dialogues, it becomes clear that the father
Has done it as a fun thing, as a joke on them.
Yeah,
Why?
it was a sheer joke. It was a
What does
sheer
it imply? Basically,
the names, Lincoln and Booth. These two names are historical names.
agreed.
Lincoln, obviously, it clearly suggests Abraham Lincoln, and Booth is the name of the person who assassinated.
So there's a lot of very hard irony, I would say, very hard hitting. I mean, there's nothing subtle about it. It's like hitting you on the head with, Lincoln, Booth, and then Lincoln playing Abraham Lincoln also at the arcade. That's his job. Jen, I wonder if you would comment on how hard hitting the irony is. I mean,
He has got a new job and having a good day.
No, we can't hear. I can't hear at least. I cannot hear.
Makes his picture anything. Breaking.
Satish, can you hear?
I can't hear a word. It's all garbled.
The voice is breaking.
Sound is breaking up.
Prabhanjan, let hold on.
Now, if you could, I think we've lost so much time. This is so unfortunate.
Motorola G60.
But can we please, Prabhanjan, can you just give us a very quick summary of what of the significance of the play? What is the significance of the play? Why has it won a prize? Why does it deserve a place in American drama? What has it achieved? Can you just sort of sum this up, please? Now, what happens? The plot we know, we heard from you. But what is the significance?
Yes. First of all, the play is strongly imbued with a strong sense of history, though it is one of more personal nature than a type of history associated with textbooks. And throughout this play, Topdog Underdog, these brothers, Lincoln and Booth, both these brothers reveal parts of their past that have shaped their present circumstances. For example, there is a minor character called Lonnie, and Lonnie's death influenced Lincoln's decision to stop dealing three-card Monte. When Booth shows Lincoln the ring he boosted, he reveals a past relationship with Grace that has been nothing short of disappointing. Moreover, the theme of identity is another important aspect of this play. I'm sorry. There are certain themes like sibling rivalry, then illusion. Moreover, as far as the style is of this play is concerned, Topdog Underdog is less fantastic than some of Parks's other plays. Though the set design evokes social realism, the play is naturalistic in the sense that Lincoln and Booth respond to the environmental forces such as poverty that shape their lives externally, as well as to the private desires and ambitions that exert an equal, if not greater, force physically.
Okay. And what would you say are the postmodern qualities of this play?
The handling, stylistically, the thematically, the play is obviously postmodern play. The way Parks handles the humor, let's say, or the language is really postmodern in style. For example, as far as the language of this play is concerned, both Booth and Lincoln speak a street language that is raw with power and filled with poetry. Their speech is also marked by profanity that, let's say, assaults the very essence of the person it is directed against. Moreover, if we look at the stage directions, as in the play, you can easily notice that in the author's notes to the play, Parks includes a short guide to interpreting her slightly unconventional theatrical elements. I deliberately quoted these words from the text. So these are a few things which make this play postmodern in style and thematically as well.
And what was the reception that it got? Was it on Broadway? Was it off Broadway? Where was it?
It was, first of all, off Broadway, as I mentioned at the beginning of my.
Sorry.
Yeah, but it was wonderfully received. And since Parks is the first African American woman playwright who received the prestigious Pulitzer Award. It itself indicates that the kind of potential this play has. Moreover, this play is this many contemporary playwrights throughout the world were influenced by Parks's style and themes.
I was just wondering, now you said that this play is in the syllabus at your university. So how do your students react to it? Because it's a scenario which is very alien to them.
If I'm not wrong, I think Shivaji University is the first university in Maharashtra which has included this play. The play by a woman playwright in our syllabus, and especially Suzan-Lori Parks' play in our syllabus, in MA syllabus. Initially, let me share my experience when we were trying to design the syllabus 4 years ago. There were much debates because people at that time did not know well about Suzan-Lori and this play.
His address. Send a play to him.
Then and strongly pleaded that this play must be prescribed in our syllabus. Some people tried to anyway, but the play is received nicely by our students as well.
Okay. So it is almost 8 o'clock and we should wind up. Is there anyone who would like to ask a question, and we will see if audibility permits that question.
Wispy has a question.
Does anyone have a question?
Wispy has a question.
Wispy has a question. Okay, Wispy, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, I've just unmuted. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I was just wondering, I mean, with the question being asked, why were they named Lincoln and Booth? Within the play, we may be told it was the father's idea. My question is, why did the writer choose these two names, and how different would it have been if just any other name, like, you know, David and Charles, something like that?
So Lincoln begins to say,
What is the writer's intention?
His brothers still had the game. Lincoln chuckled, not laughing at him. The game is too complicated. He said, perhaps surprised at how Lincoln then took it down in the catch and started one tying the knot on top of the nylon stocking.
Many, I think, many people are
1 minute. One person at a time. Wispy Billy Moria is talking to you. Others, please keep quiet. Wispy Billy Moria, please repeat your question.
I'll tell you quickly. She said that you answered the question about the names of the children of these two boys, that the father gave them as a joke. Why did the author select these two? That's her question. Why did the author select these two names? Would it have been different if he had selected some other names? So ultimately, what is the significance of choosing these two names? Of choosing these two characters of history, you know?
These names are
contained. Booth says he has been saving the money. He asks Lincoln not to open the stocking, but
You know, I wish the sound was good this time. I think Prashant must have given a lovely answer probably, but which we have not been able to hear.
Yeah.
It's just disintegrating and breaking up and we can't make out the words. So I think let it rest at that. Shall we wind up? I think we need to wind up because just can't hear anything.
I would like to express my sincere gratitude towards Dr. Mohini Khoth and Dr. Satish Khoth for giving me the opportunity to about Lori Parks' Topdog Underdog.
Thank you, Prabhanjan. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for coming forth and telling us about a play that I think none of us knew about before. Right? So it has been a learning experience.
It's very interesting. I'm going to get a copy of the play and read it. I love the way it has been presented.
Okay, now, so my thanks go out to Prabhanjan Mane, to Prashant Sinha, who was trying to participate, and we would have loved to have heard what he had to say, because he's so knowledgeable about American drama, but unfortunately, the audibility just wasn't there. So let me tell you what's going to be happening next time. Our next meeting will be on the 18th of this month. And we will have Shanti Menon speaking to us from Detroit, talking about Homeland Elegies by Ayad Akhtar. Now, you will know that this is a book which is being talked about a lot. There are so many groups that I see discussing this group, and Shanti will tell us about it. So those of us who can manage, please do read the book and come prepared. Otherwise, of course, we'll be there to learn about it. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Apologies for the sound. I mean, I wish I could control it. I wish it was in our hands to control these things. So I'm so sorry that, connectivity let us down this time. Many apologies. And let's keep our fingers crossed that it's better on the 18th. Thank you. And bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.